Okay.
Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon. Okay, shall I start? Everybody is in the class. I think we are about 50 people. Other students, what about other students? Everybody please join the class.
Connection.
Okay, in the name of God, we start psycholinguistics this semester. It's the psychology of language. The course is a 2-credit course, and we are going to cover many issues in this class, including the course offers an introduction to the fast developing field of psycholinguistics. It covers research areas such as language acquisition, speech production, sentence production and comprehension, word recognition, sentence and discourse processing, and there are many other areas to study in psycholinguistics. Major research findings and theories and models in each area will be discussed in the class. We will also examine a number of empirical studies in order to understand how psycholinguistic issues have been approached and how research in this field has been applied to the study of second language acquisition and applied linguistics. We have an objective here. The main objective is when you are asked a question about psychological use or application of language, you as a student of psycholinguistics or language should be able to apply your psycholinguistic knowledge and to address the question. For example, some people may ask you about the exposure to language, whether children who are exposed to learning language are able to learn it or without any interaction or not. This is a major question. By the end of the course, students are expected to achieve the following objectives. So I'm expecting you to be able to understand the major theories or models of language processing, production, and acquisition. So for each of them, we have a model, we have a theory, many different theories. So you should be able to explain it, to understand and apply it, or you should become familiar with some of the major findings in this area, and you have to be able to read and discuss research articles, how humans, as a human being, we are processing language. At the moment that I'm speaking, you are listening. So what is the process involved in speaking? What happens in my mind, in my brain, when I produce sentences? Or what happens in your brain when you are listening to me? What models have been proposed for this understanding? Because it is not possible to open the brain and study it. There are many theories. That's why we say it is theoretical. Understand the relationship between applied linguistics, second language acquisition, and psycholinguistics. The major textbook here is Carol, is by Carol. I have uploaded the textbook PDF form of the textbook for you. Please download the textbook. Psychology of Language is the major book we are going to consider, study. And John Field also has a couple of books on psycholinguistics. I will give you the key concepts, the psycholinguistics, which is on key concepts of psycholinguistics. He has 2 textbooks. And labels, these are recommended books, not required books. So I am suggesting for you, if you are interested, you can study other textbooks. One is Fernandez, and I some long time ago, about 10 years ago, I was teaching based on Fernandez, but now I am teaching based on Carroll. We have other textbooks here. We will cover one chapter from Labeled. Harley is also interesting. Traxler, this textbook is suitable for PhD students. Handbook of Psycholinguistics. This is better for PhD students, not MA. And we have other textbooks, for example, the key concepts. So when I'm teaching here, you at the same time can have a look at, for example, other textbooks. If something is not clear for you, a concept or a model is not clear for you, for example, you can't understand the definition and the construct of, for example, memory, then you can refer to either John Field, this textbook. John Field is like a dictionary. You can study, for example, the models, and it is based on alphabetical order, psycholinguistics. I can upload that textbook for you as well. You have to attend the classes, and you have to have class participation. When I'm asking you a question, you should be able to answer it. And also we will review the material from previous sessions, each session. And you have to be able to read the materials. For example, this week we are going to review chapter 1, study chapter 1, and we will have a midterm and a final exam. So based on the textbook, weekly schedule, once some of the students asked about the syllabus, it's quite clear here from the textbook. You can see that chapter 1, we will cover chapter 1. The first part is for today. Next week we will cover the second part of the chapter. And then we will study psychological mechanisms. This is psychological mechanisms. This is a long chapter. It will take almost 2 or 3 sessions. So 2 sessions are devoted to introduction. 2 or 3 sessions, let me check. I think it will take about 3 sessions to cover chapter 3. Yes, it will take about 3 sessions. So after session 5, after 5 sessions, we will have a midterm exam based on chapter 1 and 3. So midterm is based on chapters 1 and 3. So after we finish chapter 1 and 3, after a week or 2 weeks, we will have we'll have a midterm exam. Now, we have a new Iranian year up to, it starts from 20th of March, and there is a holiday, a 2-week holiday, so you have enough time to study the materials that we are covering from now on. So you will have time, and I want you to study the material during the holiday. The university is closed at that time. And after the holiday, on the next year, hopefully we will continue with chapter 5, 6, and 8. From each topic, for example, comprehension, I've covered sentence comprehension, not discourse comprehension, because we already had a course on discourse. And the next one is interaction, conversational interaction. I will consider production of speech and language here. And the conversational interaction is also covered in discourse. We have another topic, which is acquisition, early language acquisition. Will be covered that I mentioned in addition to the lectures in the class, because during the lecture I give you more examples. Is my voice clear? Some students have written that my voice is not clear.
Yes, yes, it is clear.
It's clear. Okay, thank
It's
you.
clear, Doctor. It's clear.
Okay, this is the end of my my explanation on the syllabus. If you have any question about the syllabus, I can explain it, clarify more. If not, we can start with the first chapter today.
No, it's clear, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay. So let's start with the first section, which is about the first chapter is about, let me see, introduction to psycholinguistics. Okay, has any of you, have you downloaded the file, session 1, slide session 1? Have any of you downloaded the slide session 1?
Yes, Doctor. I got it last week.
Okay, thank you. So if you have downloaded this, because there may be some problems in connection anytime, please remember that you can open it on a separate file. I may not be able to share it with you. So please follow the slides. So as I mentioned, the source book is David Carroll, by David Carroll. The first chapter is on themes of psycholinguistics and psychological mechanisms, internal lexicon, sentence comprehension, but we are not going to cover discourse comprehension. I covered it previous semester. I'm omitting this section. And the next one, production of speech and language and early language acquisition. We will not cover those sections. What are the areas of psycholinguistics? There are many different areas. It's a vast area within psycholinguistics. We can study language processing. Language processing means what? Language processing means comprehension and production of language. This is one area of study. Another area of study is lexical storage and retrieval. It means that how we store vocabulary, and how we retrieve the intended vocabulary, intended words when we are speaking. At the moment I'm speaking, okay, I have stored the vocabulary in my mind, and now I am retrieving them. So what happens during this process? This can be studied. First and second language acquisition, you are familiar to some extent with first and second language acquisition. Special circumstances, it means that people who have problems with language, for example, different types of aphasia in different people. Some people may have problems in understanding language, or some people may have problems in producing language. So the problematic issues are discussed in special circumstances. The next topic is the brain and language. The brain, the nerves, it is related to the nerves, neurolinguistics. And how we, for example, what happens in the brain when you are processing a sentence, for example, from different perspectives, semantically, syntactically, and then what happens in the brain. So we are not covering these last issues because it is too vast. We just covered from first lexical storage, language processing, and first language acquisition. So the aim of this course is how people, we want to understand how people acquire language. Actually, in this textbook, we consider native speakers. First language acquisition is related to native speakers. How people use language to speak. So there are many different models for speaking. We will consider one of these models. How people understand one another. What happens when people are speaking to each other and how they can understand each other. How language is represented or processed in the brain. How we process it. To describe the major empirical findings that support and challenge these theories. These are the issues that we cover. You know, we have different, language has different functions. We have different functions for language. You know that we have, as a student of language, you are familiar with the vocabularies in this field, for example, communication. We communicate our needs, wants, and we convey our thoughts. This is one function of language. We can even express our emotions. We can express our emotions and feelings. Yeah. And we can identify social interaction. People interact with each other. It is not just individual act. Here, in the second one, people may individually express their feelings, but we have social interaction, and we make use of language sounds and words as a source of pleasure. For example, we have crossword puzzle. We have poetry, poems. So here we use language for pleasure. And now the question is, we have different functions for language. How can something so widespread and far-reaching as language be examined psychologically? Because there are different functions for language. How can we it's too vast, you know? How can we understand? How can we study language which is too vast, too extended, unlimited? Another point here is the contradiction between the concept or the construct of language and its function. You know, language is used for social interaction. People use language in order to communicate with each other. It is a social phenomenon. But on the other hand, from psychological perspective, we can't study people. We just study language which is in the mind of the individuals, because language, psychology is psycholinguistics is the study of the psychological study of language. It means that we are considering the brain, the mind, and the mind is just one mind, one person's mind, not many different persons' mind. So we can only understand one mind because there is just one individual mind. So psycholinguistics on the one hand is individual act. And we are going to study something social. Social language is social languages. So we are using mental processes which are specific to individuals, and we use them in order to study language. Language is a social phenomenon. Now, as I mentioned before, there are three sets of processes which are involved in the in psycholinguistics, and these processes people are interested in, for example, language comprehension. Language comprehension means how we perceive and how we understand speech and writing, for example, when we are reading or listening. So comprehension involves both listening and speaking. How we convert auditory or visual signals into meaning. When you are reading, for example, there is a visual signal. There is a visual element on the page, visual signal, and then after reading that visual signal, you change it into meaning in your brain. Or when you are listening to the sound waves, which is produced by other speakers, in fact, you are processing it, you are understanding, comprehending this auditory signal, and you are changing it immediately into meaning. So what happens during this change? On the one hand, we have some ideas, meanings. On the other hand, meaning is abstract, not observable. And on the other hand, we have observable words, vocabulary, or wave signals, which are observable, they are concrete in the environment. So language is observable, it's in the environment. We are, in fact, a human brain is a kind of machine. It is changing actually objects, observable, concrete objects, into abstract ideas. Abstract ideas are meanings. So what happens within that machine? We want to know that. Language production, how we construct an utterance. It means how we construct an utterance from idea. Now, it is the reverse of comprehension. In production, in fact, we have an idea, we have a meaning in our brain, in our minds. And then the meaning is abstract and it is changed into vocabulary, into word structures, into speech or writing. So how we change that, how we convert our thoughts into, for example, sequences of actions. For example, I'm moving my tongue, my speech organ in order to produce the words. So what it happens, how we change it into muscular movement, how ideas are changed into muscular movements, and then voice is actually is producing a kind of sound waves. And finally, we have language acquisition. Language acquisition can be considered both for children and for adults. How children are learning language, how adults, for example, are learning language. How children acquire language, yes, Eftisam has said how children acquire language. Now, psycholinguistics, the definition of psycholinguistics is a combination, it is clear, a combination of psychology and linguistics. You know what linguistics is. It is a branch of science that studies the origin and structure and use of language. It's clear. But what about psychology? We can say that psycholinguistics examines the psychology of language. It examines the psychology of language. It means that we are considering the psychological processes involved in language, the psychological study of language. Actually, psycholinguistics is a part of let's say, cognitive science. Cognitive science also involves different branches and different fields. We will consider them one by one. In cognitive science, in fact, we have ideas are coming, people are working from psychologists, different people, including psychologists, linguists, computer scientists, neurolinguists, neuroscientists, and philosophers are working within cognitive science. And the topics studied by cognitive scientists, for example, they study problem solving, memory, imagery, and language. And language is the common subject studied by cognitive scientists and psycholinguists and linguists. Here again, you can see more extended relationship between cognitive psychology and other disciplines. We have different disciplines here. So one major question: what knowledge of language is needed for us to use language? What do we need if we want to use language? What knowledge do we need? In fact, we have two types of knowledge. In linguistics, we say implicit and explicit knowledge. But in psychology, they use the term passive knowledge or implicit knowledge. It refers to the knowledge of how to perform various acts. For example, actually people have different types of knowledge. For example, you have the knowledge of speaking, you have the knowledge of speaking, you have the knowledge of writing, and we have the knowledge of, for example, driving. But it's difficult to transfer to another person. So when you want to explain it, how you speak, it's difficult to explain. Or how you drive. If you are an expert driver, it's very difficult to explain for another person that which steps are the first steps in driving. So it is difficult to write or to say it. Verbalize means saying. It's difficult to say it, the knowledge. Sometimes you may give people some questions which are including grammaticality, it's called grammaticality judgment test. So in grammaticality judgment test, you ask people to say whether a sentence is correct or not correct. Some people say that, okay, I know this sentence is not correct, but I can't explain it because that knowledge, that piece of knowledge is based on implicit knowledge. It is based on intuition, not explicit knowledge. Intuitive knowledge is implicit. And what about explicit knowledge? Explicit knowledge refers to the processes or mechanisms used in these acts. It's easy to transfer to another person. For example, at the moment I am teaching psycholinguistics, and I'm transferring the knowledge that I have acquired to you. So this is a piece of my explicit knowledge I'm explaining to you. But in other cases, how I have remembered them, how I have I'm producing them, it may be difficult for me to explain for you. So in addition, implicit linguistic knowledge includes, for example, you can make novel, unique sentences. For example, you can say the printer for my computer needs a new cable. It's easy to say the sentences. You can make new sentences. You can recognize whether a sentence is good in English. For example, this sentence is not correct, but you may not be able to explain it. If you ask children, for example, to explain why this sentence is not correct in Arabic, for example, they may not be able. So if you tell a child, for example, in a sentence you put two verbs and ask them, what's the problem with this? They may say, it is not correct, but I don't know why it is not correct. So they can recognize and they can produce sentences. And we have intuitions about sentence relatedness. We know that which sentences are related to each other. For example, John picked the ball up and John picked it up. These two sentences are related to each other. But the last one is not related. Mary picked up it is not correct. It is easy to recognize the incorrect sentence. Recognize implications. In implications means in pragmatics, aware of full use the rules. Yes. Could you, for example, open the window? This is a piece of, here, this is an indirect question. Can you pass me the salt? What does it mean by can you pass me the salt? It means that please give me the salt. This is
Polite requests, Doctor.
yes. Ask you a question. Any question?
No, Doctor. I just say this example is referred to a polite request.
Let me make it a little bit okay. This question, yes, it's a request. Yeah, you are right. This is a request, and this is a request in indirect form. Because in the direct form, in fact, we are ordering other people to do some actions. We do not use direct form because it is not polite to use direct forms. It's impolite, so we use indirect question form, indirect form of ordering. Explicit knowledge, for example, we have, so that piece of knowledge up to here is about implicit linguistic knowledge. And the next slide gives us some examples of explicit and implicit knowledge. For example, the sentence, London is in the UK. This is a piece of explicit knowledge. I can verbalize it, I can say it, I can write it, and you can understand as a recipient, you can understand it. So this is a piece of explicit knowledge. But tacit knowledge, the ability to speak, I cannot explain you how I am speaking. To speak a language or to play a musical instrument requires all sorts of knowledge that is not always known explicitly. You may have seen some people who are playing very beautifully piano, they play different instruments, but they can't teach it because it's based on their implicit knowledge, based on their tacit knowledge. It is difficult to explicitly transfer it to other people. So tacit knowledge is very difficult to transfer. It's difficult to explain or verbalize, but explicit knowledge is easy to verbalize and explain. Now, the problem is that most of our linguistic knowledge is tacit rather than explicit. We may distinguish between knowing how to speak and what processes are involved in the production of speech, explicit knowledge. So mostly our knowledge is based on tacit knowledge. Linguistic knowledge is implicit knowledge, not explicit. That's the problem for us. And this knowledge, linguistic knowledge, for example, includes syntax. Syntax is not observable. It is in the minds of the speakers. Yes, it is in the minds of the speakers. We can know the problems with the sentences which are not grammatically correct. arrangement of words and phrases. This is a piece of linguistic knowledge and implicit or semantics, meanings of sentences and words. Phonology, rules of the sound system. So micro-linguistics. The micro-linguistics, we can say, is an implicit knowledge. Or pragmatics, lexicon and morphology, all of them are a part of all our implicit knowledge. You are familiar with this table because we covered it previous semester. You can have a look at it. Just give me a couple of minutes. Just study this section, please.